My name is Jake, and any uncertainty I ever had about my place in my family disappeared the moment I learned about the will. It wasn't some dramatic family meeting where my parents sat me down and broke the news. There was no warning, no explanation. I found out completely by accident. Pure, stupid luck. It happened a few months ago at their house. The same house I had been helping them keep for the last 5 years. I paid toward the mortgage, covered groceries when they were short, fixed broken things around the place. I was the one holding everything together, while my brother Eric did absolutely nothing. And when I say nothing, I mean exactly that. No job, no responsibilities, he's just lying around and waiting for life to hand him everything. And apparently, my parents were more than happy to do exactly that. That day, I was helping my dad with paperwork. As usual, neither of my parents could be bothered to deal with documents themselves, so he asked me to scan a stack of legal and financial papers. I didn't think twice about it until I noticed a folder labeled Estate Plan and Last Will and Testament sitting right there in the pile. I'm not the type to snoop, but curiosity got the better of me. After all, I had been the one making sure they didn't lose the roof over their heads. It didn't feel unreasonable to wonder how things were arranged for the future. So I opened the folder. The moment I read it, my stomach dropped. Everything was going to Eric. The house, their savings, all their assets. My name appeared nowhere, except for a vague line about how they loved both of their sons equally. Yeah, equally. That must be why their golden child was set to inherit everything, while the son who actually kept them afloat didn't even earn a footnote. I felt like an idiot. I had bent over backward for years, making sure their bills were paid, making sure food was always on the table, while they quietly planned a future where I got nothing. Eric, meanwhile, wasn't just lazy. He was entitled. He had never helped them, never contributed a cent, yet somehow he had convinced them that he deserved it all. Maybe because he was the younger one. Maybe because they had always babied him. Or maybe because he knew exactly how to manipulate them. Whatever the reason, they had made their choice. He sat there staring at the pages, my hands trembling with a mix of anger and betrayal. How long had this been planned? Had they always intended for me to be their unpaid financial safety net, with nothing in return? Did they ever actually appreciate anything I had done? I didn't know how long I sat there before my dad noticed I wasn't scanning anymore. "Hey Jake, what's taking so long?" he asked as he walked back into the room. I didn't bother hiding the document. He held up the will and looked him straight in the eye. "So this is how it is," I said, my voice unnervingly calm. "Everything goes to Eric. After everything I've done for you." For a brief second, my dad's face went pale. But instead of looking guilty or surprised, he sighed, like I was a child throwing a tantrum over something trivial. "Jake, it's not what you think," he said quietly. That was enough to snap whatever restraint I had left. "Not what I think," I shot back, "because it looks pretty damn clear to me. You've been paying your mortgage, helping with groceries, fixing this house, while Eric does nothing, and you still decided he's the only one who matters." He shifted uncomfortably, avoiding my eyes. Instead of offering an explanation or an apology, he muttered 2 words that made my blood boil. "It's complicated." That was it. No remorse. No justification. Just a weak excuse and an expectant look, like he was waiting for me to drop it and go back to being their personal ATM. He should have walked out right then. I should have left without another word. But I wanted to hear it from both of them. He needed to know if this betrayal was mutual. So I called for my mom. When she came into the room and saw the will in my hands, she didn't look shocked. If anything, she looked guilty, but only for a moment. Then she spoke, and what she said made my blood boil even more. "Yeke, honey, you don't need the inheritance," she said softly, like she was doing me a favor. "You have a good job. You're independent." Eric, well, he struggles. We just want to make sure he's taken care of. Something inside me snapped. They knew exactly what they were doing. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't an oversight. In their minds, this decision was completely justified. They had spent years enabling Eric's laziness, and now they were rewarding it, handing him everything, while I was cast aside like an afterthought. He took a slow breath, clenched my jaw, and placed the will back on the table. "Got it," I said, my voice eerily calm. "I'm glad they finally know where we stand." Then I turned around and walked out. I ignored their voices calling after me. He slammed the door behind me and left without looking back. They had made their decision. Now it was time for me to make mine. I didn't go back to their house after that. I didn't call. I didn't check in. For the first time in years, I let them deal with their own problems. If something broke, they could figure it out themselves. If they needed groceries, they could find their own way to the store. And if that mortgage bill showed up, I wasn't paying it anymore. The silence lasted about 2 weeks. At first, I think they assumed I was just sulking, that I'd cool off, feel guilty, and crawl back like I always had. Maybe they expected an apology for daring to question their decision. But as the days passed, with no calls, no visits, and most importantly, no money, I could practically feel their attitude shift. Then one afternoon, my phone buzzed. It was a text from my dad. "Property taxes are due." That was it. "No, how are you?" "No, we're sorry." "No, we appreciate everything you've done." Just a cold, transactional message, like I was still the walking bank account they could tap whenever they wanted. He stared at my phone for a moment, almost amused by how predictable they were. They really thought they could just demand money like nothing had happened. That I'd keep playing my role as their financial safety net, even after they had made it clear how disposable I was. I slowly typed back, "I'm sure Eric will handle it, since the house is his." It took exactly 5 minutes before my mom called. I let the phone ring. Then another message came through. "Jake, please don't be like this. We need to talk." Oh, now they wanted to talk. Now that the bills were stacking up and reality was finally catching up with them. I waited an hour before replying. "There's nothing to talk about. You made your choice. Now you can live with it." I thought that would be the end of it for the day. I had made my position crystal clear, and not a single part of me felt guilty. But then Eric decided to get involved. His message came in later that evening, and the second I saw his name pop up on my screen, I knew it was going to be something irritating. "Duda, why are you being such a drama queen? It's not a big deal. Just help them out like you always do." I nearly laughed. "Not a big deal." He typed back, "I think you've got it covered since you're the favorite." His response came fast. "Oh my God, are you seriously mad about the will?" Grow up, man. It's just money. Just money. Of course it was just money, now that it was his. I fired back. Then you won't mind using some of that money to pay the mortgage, right? Silence. A few minutes later, my mom texted again, this time going full guilt trip mode. Jake, we're your parents. Family takes care of each other. We did so much for you growing up, and now you're just abandoning us. I had to take a deep breath to keep from throwing my phone across the room. Abandoning them. I had spent years making sure they never struggled while they coddled Eric and rewarded his laziness. And now that they were finally facing the consequences of their own decisions, I was the villain. I wasn't falling for it. You made it clear I wasn't part of the family when you left me out of the will, I replied. Now Eric can take care of you. I could almost picture my mom gasping dramatically. She always had a talent for playing the victim, even when she was the one in the wrong. A few minutes later, my dad sent another message, and this one made my blood boil. We're not asking for much, just enough to cover the mortgage for a few months until we figure things out. Don't be selfish. Selfish. The word hit like a slap. I had sacrificed my time, my money, my energy for years to make their lives easier. I had done everything a good son was supposed to do, and they repaid me by cutting me out completely. And now, because I finally said no, I was selfish? I clenched my jaw, took a deep breath, and typed one final response, "No, I am done." Then I turned off my phone. They had made their choice. Now they were going to live with it. The silence lasted one day. I knew my parents wouldn't give up that easily, but I wasn't prepared for what came next. The next morning, I woke up to a notification that made my stomach twist. A bank transfer request. Frowning, I unlocked my phone and checked the details. It was from my mom. She hadn't even bothered to send a message, just a straight-up request for money, like I was some kind of ATM. The amount, $3,500. He stared at the screen in disbelief, half laughing at the sheer audacity. No explanation, no apology, just a cold, shameless demand for the exact amount they needed to cover their overdue mortgage. They weren't even asking anymore. They were assuming I'd cave. I declined it immediately. Less than 5 minutes later, my phone started ringing. Mom, I let it ring. Then another message popped up. I know you saw the request. Why did you decline it? I took my time before responding. Because it's not my responsibility. Try Eric. Another call. Declined. Another message. We're going to lose the house if you don't help us. Oh, no, it was an emergency. After years of treating me like a walking wallet, they were finally being forced to face the consequences of their own choices. Maybe you should have thought about that before deciding I didn't matter. I typed back. A few seconds later, my dad jumped in. You're already going to let your parents become homeless. That one actually made me laugh out loud. They weren't broke. They weren't about to be thrown out onto the street. They just didn't want to touch their own savings because they had gotten used to me covering everything. I ignored them for the rest of the day. That night, another message came in from Eric. Dude, just send them the money already. You're making this a bigger deal than it is. I clenched my jaw. The nerve of him. You mean the same money you're inheriting? I replied. Why don't you send it? His response came almost immediately. You know I don't have that kind of cash right now. Of course he didn't. He was perfectly fine with me draining my accounts, But the second it was his turn, suddenly he had nothing to give. "Guess you'd better figure it out," I wrote back. "You're the one they chose." No reply. He went to bed that night feeling strangely calm, like I had finally broken free from years of manipulation. But the next day, things escalated. I was at work when my phone rang. It was the front desk at my apartment building. "Hey, Jake," the receptionist said hesitantly. "Your parents are here." I nearly dropped my phone. "What?" I asked. She paused. "They're saying it's an emergency and that you won't answer their calls." My head throbbed. "Please don't let them up," I said. "I'm not expecting them." There was an awkward silence. "They're being kind of pushy." "I don't care," I replied. "They can leave." He hung up, only to receive a text seconds later. "We're downstairs. Open the door." No greeting, no explanation, just another demand. I didn't respond. Another message followed. "We're not leaving until you talk to us." I exhaled sharply and stood up from my desk. They weren't going to back down. Fine. It was time to teach them a lesson they wouldn't forget. I grabbed my keys and headed downstairs, fury simmering just beneath the surface. I wasn't scared, not even a little. I was angry. The sheer audacity of showing up at my apartment uninvited, understand, demanding money like I was their personal cash machine. No phone call, no warning, not even a half-hearted apology, just a full-on ambush. They really thought they could corner me into giving in, like I was still some naive kid who could be pressured into obedience. He yanked the door open. There they were, my mom, my dad, and of course Eric, all standing together in a tight formation, like they were staging some kind of family intervention. My mom had her arms crossed, her signature disappointed mother expression locked and loaded. My dad stood stiffly beside her, hands shoved into his pockets, his face a mix of irritation and entitlement, as if he couldn't believe I had forced him to confront me in person. And Eric, he had the nerve to look bored, like this entire situation was just mildly inconvenient, like he wasn't the reason any of this was happening. The moment my mom saw me, she went straight into performance mode. "Jake, finally. We need to talk." I leaned against the doorframe, crossed my arms, and shook my head. "No," I said calmly. "You need to leave." She blinked, clearly struggling to process what I'd just said. "Excuse me?" "You heard me," I replied, my voice steady and controlled. "You don't get to show up at my apartment and demand money. That's insane." My dad scoffed sharply. "Are you really going to let us lose the house over some petty grudge?" I let out a cold laugh. "Petty grudge? You mean the one where you decided I was good enough to pay your bills, but not good enough to be in your will? That grudge?" My mom gasped and clutched her chest like I'd physically struck her. "Jake, that's not fair. We only did what we thought was best for the family." He tilted my head. "Best for the family or best for Eric? Just say it." Silence. Heavy, uncomfortable silence. Eric, who had been unusually quiet until then, finally spoke. "Look, man, I don't even want to be involved in this. I didn't ask for any of it." He turned toward him, my patience completely gone. "No, you just sit back and take everything that's handed to you," I snapped. "You're a 28 years old, Eric. Get a damn job." His face flushed red. "What the hell, dude?" I took a step closer. "You heard me. If you want to inherit the house, start acting like a homeowner. If you want to be the golden child, start paying their bills. I'm done being your bank. Eric looked away, suddenly fascinated by the ground beneath his feet. Mom inhaled D, recalibrating for another guilt trip. Jake, he's your brother. I nodded. Yeah, and I've supported him longer than you ever have. My dad's expression hardened. You're being selfish. I laughed an actual genuine laugh. That's rich coming from you, I said, gesturing between them. You decided Eric deserved everything and I deserved nothing. And now that it's time to deal with the consequences, you're trying to manipulate me into fixing it for you. Not happening. My mom's voice sharpened. We thought you'd be mature about this. Mature. I raised an eyebrow. You mean quietly accept being betrayed and keep paying your bills? Because let's be honest, that's what you expected. My dad stepped forward, trying to loom over me the way he used to when I was a kid. We raised you. We fed you. We clothed you. We gave you everything. The least you can do is help us now. I met his gaze without flinching. I already did, for years. And you repaid me by cutting me out. My mom's lip trembled. We thought you'd understand. I exhaled slowly, shaking my head. Oh, I understand perfectly, I said. I understand that I was never family to you. I was just a paycheck. Silence fell again. Thick, suffocating, impossible to ignore. I turned toward Eric, who was still trying to make himself invisible. And you? I asked. What's your excuse? He shrugged, frustration creeping into his voice. What do you want me to say? I didn't ask for this. I nodded slowly. Right. You didn't ask. You just benefited. His mouth opened, then closed again. He had nothing to say. My mom tried one last time, her voice soft but loaded. Jake, we're family. Family takes care of each other. He looked at her for a long moment before responding. Exactly, I said quietly. So why didn't you ever take care of me? She froze. No response. No defense. Nothing. I let out a long breath, feeling lighter than I had in years. We're done here. He turned and walked back inside, closing the door behind me. Before I even reached my couch, my phone buzzed with a new message from my dad. After everything we've done for you, you are really going to abandon us? I smirked as I typed my reply. No, I wrote, you abandoned me. I'm just finally accepting it. I hit send, and then I blocked their numbers. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. Less than a day later, things spiraled out of control. I started seeing posts on Facebook. My parents had never been especially tech-savvy, but they had always known how to air out family drama when it suited them. At first, I assumed it was just their usual over-the-top behavior. But the more I scrolled, the clearer it became. This wasn't just venting. This was a full-on character assassination. My mom posted about how she didn't raise her son to be so selfish, followed by vague comments about how real family helps each other no matter what. Her friends flooded the comments, calling me ungrateful and heartless. Then my dad posted his own status. So-called family should never turn their back when you need them most. We gave everything to our children, and this is how we're repaid. A son who should be helping us in our golden years has chosen to abandon us. He tagged me, added a passive-aggressive. I hope you're happy. But the worst one, The one that pushed me over the edge came from Eric. Of course it did. He shared a post dripping with fake virtue. Some people think family is just about money. They don't understand that family is about love and sacrifice. I'd do anything for my parents, but some people are too wrapped up in themselves to understand what real family means. Then, the final jab. You wish some people would learn what it truly means to be family. That was it. That was my breaking point. He sat there staring at my screen, disbelief washing over me. How had it come to this? How did they manage to flip the story so completely that I was now the villain, the cold, selfish son who refused to help his sacrificing parents? The ungrateful child who didn't appreciate all the love they had supposedly given me. It made me sick. I had always been the responsible one, the one who worked hard, the one who showed up, the one who paid, fixed, supported, and never complained. And yet somehow they had convinced themselves, and now everyone else, that I was the problem. I didn't respond right away. He stepped back, took a breath, and gave myself a few hours. I didn't want to react out of pure anger. I wanted to be clear-headed, deliberate. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I couldn't let this stand. If they were going to drag my name through the mud, I wasn't going to stay silent. So I opened Facebook. I logged into my own account, the one I kept for close friends and people who actually knew me. I wasn't interested in petty back-and-forth arguments or vague quotes. I wasn't going to play their game. I was going to tell the truth. I started typing. I wrote about how I stayed quiet, but couldn't anymore. About how the story being told about me wasn't true. About how I'd supported my parents financially from the moment I was able to work, paying bills, buying groceries, helping wherever I could. He wrote about how giving without respect eventually breaks you. He explained how, for years, I watched my parents favor Eric, giving him the house, the money, the attention, while I was expected to keep giving endlessly without ever being treated as equal. He acknowledged that some people might think this was just how family works. But I made one thing clear. Family should be a two-way street. He shared how discovering the will, where everything was left to Eric, and I wasn't even considered, was the moment I finally saw how one-sided everything had been. How I was only wanted when it was convenient, only valued when my wallet was involved. He listed what I had done over the years, funding vacations, covering bills, helping with taxes and home expenses, and asked a simple question: for what? To be treated like a backup plan. I made it clear that I was done being a source of money instead of a human being, that I deserved respect. That stepping back wasn't betrayal, it was self-preservation. I addressed Eric directly too. He wrote that he was 28 years old and had never worked, never taken responsibility because he'd been enabled his entire life. And that now it was time for him to stand on his own 2 feet. I ended by reminding everyone that there are always 2 sides to every story. That family matters, but so does mutual respect. That I wasn't apologizing for choosing myself after years of being used. And then I hit post. Almost immediately, a wave of relief washed over me. For the first time in my life, the truth was out there, not hidden behind guilt trips, manipulation, or silence. People started reacting right away. Friends I hadn't spoken to in years, cousins, even some of my parents' acquaintances. Messages poured in, words of support, apologies for what I had gone through. It felt freeing, but it didn't take long for the backlash to come. My parents and Eric went ballistic. Eric was the first to explode. "You're a traitor," he messaged me. "You really had to put all our business online like that? You have no respect for family." Not long after, my dad called. He answered out of sheer curiosity, and he didn't disappoint. "You've ruined everything, Jake," he shouted into the phone. "You'll regret this. You'll regret cutting us off. You'll regret turning your back on your own family." I listened without interrupting, and then I hung up. I didn't regret it, not for a second. I blocked them all. My parents, Eric, every single one of them. No more messages, no more calls, no more guilt trips disguised as concern. I was done. As the days passed, something strange happened. The weight I had carried for years, decades, really started to lift. The constant pressure to fix everything, the responsibility that was never mine to begin with, the feeling that my worth was measured only by how much I could give. All of it slowly faded. For the first time in my life, I felt free, free from the toxic grip my family had held over me for so long, free from being the reliable one, the fallback plan, the emergency fund with a heartbeat, free from the expectation that I would always sacrifice myself so others wouldn't have to change. I stopped questioning myself. I stopped wondering if I had done the right thing. I knew I had. I wasn't heartless. I wasn't selfish. I wasn't abandoning anyone. I was finally choosing myself after years of being treated as less than. So no, I don't feel bad for cutting them reveals off. I deserve better. I always did. From now on, I'm surrounding myself with people who value me for who I am, not for what I can provide. People who show up, who give back, who see me as more than a solution to their problems. This chapter of my life is over. And for the first time, I'm moving forward on my own terms, without guilt, without regret, and without looking back.